broadcasting around the world. This is the Hard Asset Money Show. Your wealth, your money, your future. Serious talk about what's happening and how you profit. Hosted by Christian Briggs. Follow him on X at BMC_HAM. Live in 3, 2, 1.
Well, all right, so we're going to do a show specifically on this whole Iranian attack. And, you know, a lot of people were asking over the last maybe 2-3 weeks, is this going to happen? And, of course, it did. And we were expecting it anyway. We're some kind of a coalition, whether it was just Israeli that would have access to the weapons, of course, the things of which the U.S. military has available. But it was a direct, obviously, involvement with the U.S. on this bombing in Iran of the nuclear facilities, which was probably long overdue anyway. It should have never gotten this far. So today's show, we're going to talk specifically about what happened, and there's a lot of talk going on right now. So we wanted to broadcast something that maybe would shed a little bit more light. Today, you know, you look at what's happened, I think what we're going to need to do is kind of backtrack a little bit about exactly why we got here. That's the key, is how come we got here. We're going to go into detail about specifics, very statistically understanding how did Iran get this far in the uranium enrichment? How far did they really get as far as the percentage of enrichment? And again, who allowed it? Which I think there's a lot of people that might be pointed fingers at, but at the end of the day, at least we got where we got. So stand by. We'll be right back in 60 seconds.
This podcast is brought to you by Hard Asset Management. We have the guaranteed lowest prices on all precious metals and rare coins. Call us at 844-426-4653. That's 844-426-4653.
Welcome back here now. So today's show, we're going to be talking specifically about, did Iran actually have the levels of enrichment that would have justified exactly what took place in the last 24 to 48 hours? Certainly, a lot of the intelligence agencies that are providing information, whether it's the Israeli intelligence, whether it's the U.S., whether it's the U.K., the MI6, the Mossad, the CIA, there's a bunch of intelligence agencies that provide this information to governments. Certainly they do share that among each other, especially of this magnitude. And the consensus is they did have enrichment levels that were far exceeding the normalization of just energy or nuclear power to light bulbs, you know, in homes and what have you. But whether they had over 60% enrichment, which anything over 60 is atomic, anything over 90 is a nuclear, or up to 90% could even go further than just atomic. So what President Trump had to do was to make a quick determination. Do we allow them to have further amounts or higher levels per amount? And the second thing, which is very important, is that Iran was working on a very specific space endeavors. Let me explain that. They were looking on space exploration going to the moon, is what they were saying. So they were building systems, getting technology, and according to a lot of sources that we've been able to talk with, their space initiative, okay, long-term goal, they started, I think in 2006 was when they started kind of enrichment of the uranium, and they started moving forward with nuclear projects that would obviously start with energy, and then of course it just continued to grow from there into further higher levels of uranium enrichment, which would have been obviously weapons. And two, they were using their space program as a front, saying we're going to go to the space station, we're going to go to the moon, we're going to be able to put satellites up there. Much of their technology derived, moving forward with space exploration, was derived from some of their partner or ally countries, which is Russia, North Korea, China. And a lot of that actually was going more toward ICBMs, which means that they were building missiles and rockets that would launch these nuclear weapons. So it was a twofold problem. You had the enrichment of the uranium, which would give them clearly a mechanism of mass destruction, no question, whether it was atomic, nuclear, whether you go into even a higher level and multiple amounts that could create and penetrate to Israel, especially with the space program, which would give them their jet propulsion or their way of which to directly use the nuclear power that they were building into a formidable military problem. I mean, it would have been devastating. You can't have the largest sponsor of terrorism in the Middle East, one of the largest in the world, that sponsors more terrorism, to have nuclear capabilities. You just can't have it. Can't have it. And obviously, we're not going to allow them. So President Trump acted in extremely, I want to say, a proactive to some degree, even though, of course, it's been almost 20 years they've been enriching this stuff. And we're going to talk about how they got there. But he had to act in a reactionary, proactive method to stop the nuclear enrichment or the uranium enrichment and to stop their space program so they could never launch one of these things under the pretense of space exploration. They're really missiles. That's what they were, ICBMs, continental. And they could have gone into boom to Israel. They could have gone boom. They could have gone further to the UK. They could have even made it to the US eventually, and we can't have that. So how did we get here? Well, if you look at the lineage of their program, it all started in 2006. And what's interesting was Israel didn't even know it was taking place until 2009. That's when they uncovered secret nuclear reactors, or places of which you refine the uranium from domestic energy, which is a low variable, like 30%, 20 to 30%. The high side, actually 15% on the low side of the enriched uranium can be used for energy, clean energy. I mean, nuclear energy is extremely clean. It's very inexpensive. Once you get it up and running, it stays there for a long time. It can last for decades, these nuclear reactors. But, like anybody who gets the opportunity to have the power in their hands, they got greedy, or they just got to a point where they were determined to make it even further, to have maybe negotiation powers. So it all started with Obama. It kind of started with George Bush. George Bush knew it was kind of going on. There was some talk, but they weren't able to prove it till Obama took office, which was 2009, when the Israeli secret agency, Mossad, which is their version of the CIA, disclosed that they did have the enrichment going. They were planning on moving to some sort of one day having a nuclear weapon. That was the theory anyway. It wasn't all just about domestic energy. And so what we saw was Obama, in his determination, felt, okay, we can allow them to have nuclear power so they could have clean energy, or just a low-cost energy, because for whatever reason, even though they have a massive amount of oil, one of the largest producers of oil in the world, they want to move to nuclear energy. Okay, that's fine. But their ultimate motive was not just energy. It was literally to enrich uranium, to have a bargaining tool or a method of which they could gain superiority in the Middle East. Obama was a sympathizer of Iran, felt that they could probably have nuclear energy, and if they did get the bomb, this thing that he devised a few years later, that they called it it wasn't a treaty, it was just an agreement or understanding that they would never go past X amount or percentage. Well, that didn't work. I mean, everything Obama did was a disaster anyway. How's that Affordable Care Act working out for everybody? Fast forward, here we are today, and in the first term, Trump knew that that's why he tore up that agreement. So we're not honoring that agreement. Biden even said the same thing. We could never allow. Bill Clinton said it. George Bush said it. George W. Bush. Obama said it. Trump said it. Biden said it. And Trump said it again. Iran can never have a nuclear bomb. But here we are. They had enough enriched uranium to make multiple destructive nuclear weapons. They had mechanisms that were coming soon, weeks, maybe a few months away, where they could launch these things. Heck, they could have put them on a truck and driven them somewhere if they didn't have the capabilities to launch them in I call it a missile projectile system. But they got close. I mean, they were days away from putting something together. And so now, with Trump realizing that we've got to just destroy their whole facilities, they're not living within the framework of what they agreed to. Even though we walked away from the deal, everybody should have known, and everybody, including Iranian high government officials, that there's no way the United States, Israel, or other countries were saying the same thing, multiple countries, there's no way Iran can have a nuclear weapon. It's not going to happen. So they don't. Now, here's the question. And this is an interesting question. How has Iran proactively made arrangements knowing this was coming? That's the question. Have they? Did they? Would they have? Could they have? Or did they outright just do it? You see, that's the question. Did the Iranians, or could the Iranians have moved the enriched uranium prior to the strike? There are some sources out there that are saying that there was a ton of activity at all their nuclear fusion and the fusion being where they were enriching the uranium facilities, and that there was a lot of activity there, and much of that activity may have been not just taking people out, knowing that there was some kind of attack forthcoming, but according to reports that I've heard and I've read, that there may have been opportunities for them to move a lot of the technology that they had used and or created into other locations, anticipating this type of method to disarm them in such a way by destroying with the super bunker bombs, which we'll talk about, these 30,000 pound, they look like vans, like minivans, but weigh like 10 times more. They knew it was coming, or they certainly had suspicions it was coming. And of course, Trump did an amazing job in, kind of the old saying is look over here, but don't look over there kind of method about the timeline. And then he sprung into action. So he did a good job on that, no doubt. It was definitely a surprise, well kept secret by the Defense Secretary, Pete. And you got to give him credit. I mean, these people acted in such the highest professionalism. Whether you agree with some of the things or not, you've got to at least agree and admit that the precision of this particular action was incredible. It was done by the book. It was done in accordance with many ways of which we all know that you cannot have a country that is the largest sponsor of terrorism, if not in the Middle East, certainly one of the top in the world, and you just can't have it. You can't have it. There's no way.
The Hard Asset Money Show will be right back after a word from our sponsor. The Hard Asset Money Show will be right back after a word from our sponsor. Gold has nearly doubled in just 5 years, rising from $1,700 an ounce in 2020 to over $3,300 today. That's a 95% gain, outperforming the market and proving why gold is the ultimate long-term hedge. As global debt soars and currencies weaken, central banks are hoarding gold at record pace. Why aren't you? At Hard Asset Management, we offer award-winning service and fast, secure delivery. Call 844-426-4653 or visit bmcham.com. Protect your future with real assets. Own gold now. According to PCGS Price Guide, an 1849 $20 grade proof 64 plus was valued at $20 million in November 2021, and today it is worth $25 million. A rise of $5 million in less than 4 years. On April 2024, a 1921 $20 satin strike grade SP58 was valued at $750,000 according to PCGS Price Guide. Today, it is valued at $2.2 million, rising $1,450,000 in that span. Follow on X at BMC_HAM for all news and the latest developments.
So here we are today. Now, what does this mean? What that means is Iran able to go back, if they did, and were able to remove a lot of the enriched uranium that was to be destroyed in these bunker bombs? And the question is, we don't know yet. I don't think anybody knows for sure yet, but we will. I mean, the good news is the intelligence community is very powerful. They have understandings of how to gather that information. They have contacts, and they have, of course, direct technology that can enable them just about anything. But the question is, did the Iranian regime think far enough ahead and be able to move it and have enough time if they were thinking that? And the other thing is, now what happens? Now that Iran is pissed off, and there's a dozen countries that align with Iran, I don't think any one of them are those going to step up to the plate and try to challenge the U.S.'s military supremacy. I don't see it. And certainly the U.S. and its allies. China, North Korea, and Russia are all bitching and complaining about, this is a provocation of war. It's against UN regulatory or regulations or understandings or whatever. Now, you know what? Let me tell you something. Put in the hands of a 9-year-old a loaded Glock 40 and let's see a handgun and let's see what happens. It'd be the worst thing in the world to do that. You could never do that. You can't do that. You can't give a child something of that nature. It's impossible. They're not mature enough, understanding, wise enough to even come close to understand what a loaded gun's all about. It's the same thing with the Iranians. With you have this kind of regime that sponsors more terrorism with nuclear weapons, and I'm not just talking about a nuke that you put on the desk and go boom. I'm talking about, and there were weeks or a few months with some reasonable timeline. It was soon. I mean, it was soon that they were going to launch these things or had the capabilities to at least to launch. And there's no mistaking about it. You look at the way a lot of these terrorists are, they'll die for the lie. I mean, they'll suicide themselves all day long, and they'll go all in on this stuff. The question is, would Iran have gone all in? And given their track record, there's no doubt there would have been some measure of usage that there would have been in that government that says, we've got to do this. God, they would use some crazy analogy. Oh, God gave us this technology. We got to use it. Your God is not a God. It's a false God. It's not there. So it's all that crazy, crazy stuff you want to think. But they do. They think like that. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's like, God doesn't make people to kill people willfully like that. I mean, self-defense, that's one thing, but to go out there and just proactively do that, God didn't create that method of madness. He would never do that. It's all about God is love, not killing your neighbor because, well, they don't believe the same as you. So we know that religion is just false. And number two, we know they're very unstable. Remember, in '79 when they took the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, I think it was like almost 400 days or 385 or 400 days that we had all of our embassy members, big chunk of them, I think it was most of them, were taken hostage. It was a ton, and they were tortured, and they were starved, and they were mistreated. And that shows you when they overthrew the Shah of Iran in '79, and then the Ayatollahs and the Khomeinis all took over, the regime went from, Iran was kind of like a beautiful place. Women were able to dress however, people were making money, a strong middle class. Boom, the next day, here come the Ayatollahs, and they're like, no. Okay, we're going back to Sharia law, full covering. You don't have any rights. You don't have any respect. You don't own this. You don't own that. You're doing this. You're doing... I mean, it went from basically, I call it a Las Vegas, New York capitalistic environment to communism. Like literally the Shah was dethroned. He had to get the heck out. And so he comes to America, of course, and same thing, had a great country, great people, super sweet, nothing but good things Iran had in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s under the royal leadership there with the Shah and his previous relatives who ran the country did very well. So now fast forward, here we are today. Trump knew it. He had to do it. It got done, and it's a safer place because he did it. And I whether you like it or not, or agree with Israel or not, that's not the point. The point is you have to take out things of which that could do massive detrimental harm. I'm not talking about just localized there from Israel or surrounding countries. They would have had the capability if they didn't already have it. And they actually may have already had ICBMs. They just didn't launch them or they weren't ready in that capacity. But they could have been, at least the technology could have been there ready to go. And they were just, I heard they were 15 to 30 days away from being able to have a bomb. Now, whether that was launchable and that could have gone intercontinental or that was just been a more closely held distance, that's a secret, and maybe that'll come out. But I hear some things that, rumors and rumbling that they were close, and that closeness could have been full missile technology merged with nuclear capability. At the end of the day, what President Trump did was not only brave but noble. It was leadership at its finest. He knew he was going to take some heat. There's a lot of people that take heat sometimes for being courage in the face of adversity, and courage is a rare thing these days. What we try to do here is to take steps and tell people, look, it may not show itself today and it may take a year or two, but we know that things are going to happen based on the things of which are already taking place here in the outer limits that all come together. So what Trump did was the right thing. Whether you like Israel or not, it doesn't matter. This wasn't about Israel. This was about a country that had gotten technology that they were never supposed to have. They agreed they would never have it. They lied. Imagine that. And given their track record and behavior of sponsoring multiple different Islamic terrorist organizations, there's no way. And I don't care who you are, what you do, where you live, there's no way you're going to have a neighbor that would have grenades or missiles at their house. Would you feel safe? I wouldn't feel safe. I don't think anybody would feel safe. But these guys, they're terrorists. The regime was. The people of Iran, I'm sure 99% would just love to kick that government to the curb, go back to the way it was, a republic, rather than an Islamic republic, but a real republic like the United States, where you have the rights and the freedoms and to do this and do that. So you have to applaud Trump on this one. Even if, again, he goes against your narrative or your understanding and the ideology, he made this world, certainly in the surrounding communities and countries around the Middle East where Iran is, he made it a better place. Like it or not, he had to do it, whether he takes heat, which he will. and he will be shown to be right, which he already is. It's like anything. We've told people to do certain things, buy assets and this asset. You can't get microwave results unless you're looking for day trading. Sometimes, like Warren Buffett said, a great investment takes 3 to 5 years to really prove itself out. But consistency of the past and the history that we know, if it's mathematics and science, will always repeat itself. And so we know what Iran has done, what they would have done. We know assets very well, hard assets here, and we know that there are times when you want to diversify but I think this time Trump's going to be shown, he already is, people know on the inside he was right. So I wanted to spend 30 minutes today, at least on this show, because I got a lot of calls, I got a lot of texts about what my thoughts are. I probably got at least 50 or 60 texts from people asking, is this bad? Is this good? Did they have it? Did they not? What's going to happen now? And I'm going to tell you the same thing. We had to do it. They had something. There's no question. Did they have it all? I don't know. That's a great question. But they had enough to justify the action of what we did. Trump's a warrior. He's a leader. You need to applaud the guy. I don't care if you like him or not. He made the world a safer place. I don't care if you like Israel or not. It doesn't matter. This wasn't about Israel. This was about the world. And this is a man who went against the majority of the opinions, did what he had to do because nobody else was stepping up. Where was Israel? They got nukes. Go use one. Use a tactical nuke. Go boom, boop. It's over. Use a tiny one, baby one, a little one, whatever. A nuke is a nuke, but you can't to some degree. But you could have if you wanted to. But you got us in, so now we got in. He did the right thing, and leave it at that. So what's next now? I think what happens is Iran comes to the table. I think when you look at it from their perspective, which I would think would be a reasonable way to look at it, because you are the one that just got, bitch slapped for the lack of a better terminology, but you did, and you're the one with the, as we say, you can say, the swollen cojones a little bit. You lost the battle. You lost the test of time and the patience of people who knew you better than you knew yourself. And so what I see the ramifications now is Iran's going to come to the table and try to negotiate something that's a ceasefire quasi, something there that makes everybody kind of relax for the time being. But we all know that there's no peace in the Middle East. God said it clearly. There will be no peace. The Middle East will always have something going on. I said this to somebody the other day. I said, I don't know how people can be pissed off and stay this mad at each other for over 2,000 years. I don't get it. How can some people be that mad? It's like they complain and they're mad all the time. What does that get you? Right now, I got them basically a couple $100 billion worth of damage.
Look at how the rare coin market has skyrocketed in the past 2 to 3 years, specifically proof gold, and how their performance has done after Christian Briggs, CEO of Hard Asset Management, put an immediate buy recommendation in late 2019 on United States proof gold. Specifically $20 St. Gaudens gold pieces, $20, $10, and $5 Liberty proof gold, and $10 and $5 Indian Head proof gold. According to PCGS Price Guide, an 1878 $1 J1553 RB grade proof 65 plus was valued at $2,250 in October 2023, and today it is worth $190,000, an astronomical rise of 8,344%. On September 2021, a 1907.10 grade proof 68 was valued at $7,750 according to PCGS Price Guide. Today it is valued at $100,000, rising 614% in that span. Follow on X at BMC_HAM for all news and the latest developments.
I like it when Obama dropped off. What was it, in 2015, was it? Or 2014? When Obama released $150 billion in frozen cash in a New York bank. It was all Iranian money. He released that, let them go ahead and get off the sanctions so they can start selling oil. Drops off $1.7 billion on pallets in cash back then. It was euros and dollars and pounds. I think it was the combination of 3 different currencies. And so when the Ayatollah called Trump and said, look, We'll walk away for just $2 billion, but we kind of want to keep some of our enriched uranium. And the cost of dropping those bunker buster bombs was about $2 billion. So they got their $2 billion from Trump. He came through and said, hey, guess what? Here's your $2 billion. I hope you enjoy it, because guess what? It's coming with no charge. It's free. Enjoy it while you can. But I don't think that was how the Iranian regime was anticipating the payment. But they got the payment. So they'll come to the table. They'll negotiate some kind of a peace deal, a ceasefire, a new understanding. Give it 60 days, 90 days. I'm sure there'll be other little flare-ups here and there. But within 6 months to a year, this will all be back again. They'll do it again. They'll do something. They'll have allies that give them. I saw today a report that said, oh, and by the way, what was interesting in this report, they said that Russia, North Korea, China were talking about and giving them nuclear capabilities. They're not going to give them nuclear capabilities. That's not going to happen. They're not going to risk alienating dozens, if not certainly dozens and dozens of countries that would say there's no way you're going to give them what we just took out. That's not going to happen. To even talk like that is just stupid. Russia's not going to start sending over nuclear weapons to Iran. What for? What would it do for them? Nothing. Zero zip. China's not going to do it. They did sell them some technology. I know North Korea provided some stuff for the drones, and Russia's done this and that. And yeah, they've done a lot of trading and conventional military technology. No question about it. No question. Iran did not get that far on their own. Even when they did a lot of the drones that they shot down that were U.S., they obviously took that technology, they reworked it, they used it for their own version of their next generation kamikaze drones. So they did rip off a lot of technology, but they had some people helping them. And that's a fact. Iran doesn't have the intelligence of levels that we do, nor do they have those resources, but their allies do. So their allies obviously helped them over the last 10, 15 years. That's the problem, but I don't see them helping them get their bomb back or getting them to a point where they could have it, even if they have the enriched uranium. And maybe they do, maybe they did move it, as we said earlier. I don't know. I don't think they had that much. Now I do believe a lot of it was destroyed. At least I'm hearing that, but I'm also hearing there may have moved some of it. And there actually may have even been a couple other reactors, underground reactor facilities, that may actually still be there. I think there was a total of about 40 or 50. As many as that was theory. I don't know if that's true. And we obviously know there's at least 8 to 10, maybe 12 that are very sophisticated and definitively enriching uranium. But again, there's civilian use, there's military atomic, and then I consider the 90% to be the nuclear stuff, which is that's the stuff that you can't sleep at night. So with that said, I think oil is probably going to retreat a little bit. Gold will probably drop a little bit, have a little bit of a profit taking. There needs to be some profit taking on some of these commoditized investments or assets. There needs to be a little bit of breath in there, and this may have cooled things down a little bit. Not so sure about the economy. Now we can talk about the debt. By the way, congratulations. 37. We hit 37 the other day, and you ask, who hit 37? Is that a birthday? Is that a time? No, 37 trillion on the debt. Yes, the debt. 37 trillion. Let me give you some other stats. The debt per citizen is almost 109,000. It's over 108,000 now. The debt per taxpayer, because not everybody who's a citizen pays taxes. A lot of people retire, which is great. A lot of people are young. They don't work yet. That's okay. But good news is we've just crossed the largest amount, $323,051. That is the U.S. debt per taxpayer. Fantastic. But it gets better. Let's talk about this debt for a second. So U.S. federal spending officially, and you'll love this, officially shows almost $7.2 trillion. This is the official numbers. Bear with me one second. The numbers get good. And then they get better, in a way. Not so much if you're trying to reduce debt, but if you're trying to increase debt, this is fantastic. The U.S. federal budget deficit is well over $2 trillion. Okay, but let's take a step back. What do you think the actual spending is? Well, I'm glad you asked. So again, I'm going to reiterate what the official number was that the government has been putting out. 7.175183. About, let's just round up to 7.2 right now is the official word out of Congress. But the actual spending is closer to 7.4. So we're running about $161 billion more on the deficit spending. That's the actual. So instead of a little over $2 trillion, It's closer to 2.2 trillion. And a lot of these, the scoring that government agency does in order to be able to effectively determine whether that piece of legislation that goes toward either tax cuts or tax savings or budget cuts or increasing entitlements, they have different measures because we increase them, we decrease them. Increase military, decrease the growth of Medicare, decrease the growth of Medicaid, decrease the growth of Social Security. Not cutting it. The Republicans are not cutting it. They're just decreasing the growth per year to slow it down a little bit so we can play catch up. So anybody who ever says that Trump's trying to cut Medicare, Medicaid, welfare, SNAPs, which is your food entitlement, like food stamps, what they call it, SNAP now, or Social Security, that's a lie. Democrats a lie about that stuff. No one's cutting the benefits. They're just slowing the growth acceleration. Let's clear that up for the record, okay, people? Because I've got to ask that. But here's what's fundamentally flawed here on one thing. About a year ago, we were at about 120% of GDP. Well, actually, I'm lower than that, but we were at about 117, 18% GDP, debt to GDP. We're well over 123 now, but here's what's real scary. If you look at the GDP ratio, so U.S. federal budget deficit surplus to GDP ratio, so now the budget deficit is at 6.67 now. I mean, if you look at 1980, it was 2%. 1990 was at 3.84%. 2000, 2.13%. This thing is climbing. Like, this is climbing. We're almost at 7%. So we're blowing numbers out of the water here. We're statistically way, 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 way high. I think 2 or 3 times, or maybe this might be the second worst time in 50 or 60 years I'm looking here. Maybe close to 70 years, actually. It's bad. But the question is, how fast will we get to that 130% debt to GDP ratio? Because that's it. At 130%, we've got problems. Will the rate stay elevated? Probably for a while a bit, because inflation is definitely coming. Target had a huge article yesterday in Daily Mail about employees at the Target stores were showing a 96% increase in the cost on tons of household items, things that we buy every day. It was a 96% increase in the cost of those goods. A lot of it is tariff related, and a lot of it is just supply chain issues, and it's just cost, labor costs, oil costs, which is, gas for manufacturing, distribution, transportation. I mean, heck, we've got to pay to go get the stuff. So, oil is up, I think now about 76, 77 tonight. That's also going to bring inflation back up. So Powell, as much as he's rubbing Trump the wrong way, he may not be too far off holding the rates here. I'm not saying that we should be raising them by any means. Good God, no. But I think inflation is going to be coming up a little stronger. And remember, when interest rates go up, precious metals are very sensitive to that. The metals may take a pause and a little bit of profit taking. I would not be surprised. So there's a better entry point, maybe 10 or 15%. Other hard assets are actually starting to move up. They trail precious metals. So watch those. Those are going to start moving here. We've already seen move in the last couple of weeks. The metals have kind of slowed a little bit, and we're seeing a pretty good swing to the upside, which we think this fall, early winter is going to be fantastic for the more rare hard assets like the coins and cars and art and stuff, that all having some movement now, kind of dead in the springtime, which is normal, and now they're moving higher, which is very good. Or at least a lot of things are starting to sell, and prices are doing quite well. So with that said, I would be hesitant to recommend anything in the metals right now. I don't know if the stocks have peaked out yet. I'm hearing a lot of things. I'm reading a lot of things in the last couple of weeks that are saying that stocks may have peaked. Some people say they haven't. Some people say they have. You know what? I always tell people 3-5, 3-5, 3-5, 3-5. I'll tell you what that means. Any investment should be held for a minimum of 3, preferably 5 years, to capitalize on the value of the appreciable asset that has the potential to increase. It's 3 to 5 years as a minimum. 3 years, 5 years is usually a good number. Warren Buffett has said that many, many times over the last 50, 60 years. That's his mentality. Now he's obviously in later years gone to the 5, the 10, the 20. But with that said, I hope everybody understood now why Trump did what he did. It was necessary. He took a leadership role. Biden, I don't think he remembered even he was president a couple times, a lot of times probably. So what leadership was that? Leadership in the ice cream stand, maybe picking out his favorite ice cream. And Obama was a sympathizer, an Iranian sympathizer. Valerie Jarrett, who was very, very close to Barack and Michelle Obama, she was Iranian and obviously had a lot of family high up in the government. And she was the one that really pushed toward allowing Iran to have nuclear capabilities, knowing at one time they would have a bomb, or they would enriched farther than just the civilian use, which would be for nuclear and a natural state of energy for people. They would go farther. Of course they were. That's what they do. It's how it works. So we are in a better place. Trump made it a safer place. Congratulations, President Trump. The courage and the initiative to do it right. I applaud you and your team. They kept the mission simply from A to B, and they did it. So I am Christian Briggs, host of this Hard Asset Money Show. We will be back tomorrow with another great show. And thank you for YouTube. We now have reached 9,730 subscribers, and we're relevant. And I appreciate that. We've had a ton. Our last show, which was 2 weeks ago, and I apologize for that, is one of our top shows that we've ever done. So it's great. And we really appreciate, again, all the people who call and text and write and all that stuff, and email. I'd say write, email. Appreciate what we do, how we do it, and we appreciate all of you for listening and being a part of the show and the success. We're going to be back tomorrow with another great show. Tomorrow we're going to talk about what will happen if Iran does get back into the business of enrichment. We're going to be broadcasting, as we do a lot of times, from Florida or D.C. or wherever. We're on the road a lot. But we'll be back tomorrow with another great show. Thanks again for joining us, and thanks again for making almost 10,000 subscribers growth on our YouTube channel.
The Hard Asset Money Show will be right back after a word from our sponsor. Let's take a look at how the rare coin market has skyrocketed in the past 2 to 3 years, specifically proof gold, and how their performance has done after Christian Briggs, CEO of Hard Asset Management, put an immediate buy recommendation in late 2019 on United States proof gold. Specifically $20 St. Gaudens gold pieces, $20, $10, and $5 Liberty proof gold, and $10 and $5 Indian head proof gold. According to PCGS Price Guide, an 1849 $20 grade proof 64 plus was valued at $20 million in November 2021, and today it is worth $25 million, a rise of $5 million in less than 4 years. On April 2024, a 1921 $20 satin strike grade SP58 was valued at $750,000 according to PCGS Price Guide. Today, it is valued at $2.2 million, rising $1,450,000 in that span. Follow on X at BMC_HAM for all news and the latest developments.